Okay, I hope you can hear me. If you can, maybe perhaps type something into chat, please, just to let me know that we're here. Thank you. Good, good. Okay. Welcome, everybody. I'm John Keating. I'm going to be teaching this module, Web Information Processing, and today's lecture is just going to be an overview of that module. So we'll do a little bit of HTML, Hypertext Markup language, as we go. So I guess the plan for me and generally is that I tend to start slow and then we get quicker, we move along a little bit quicker. But some of you will know some web information processing already, some of you won't. But you know, after 3 weeks, I guess everybody should be at a stage where they can do some HTML, some CSS, and some JavaScript. Okay, so let's work through the slides, and you know, you can ask questions in chat. I'll keep an eye. You can see it here, and if I need anything to reply to anything, I'll certainly do it. Okay, so let's go. Right, CS230 is this introductory module for web information processing. It's the only web processing module in CS. So we have to pack quite a bit in, but it does provide an overview of both modern and legacy approaches to information processing in a network environment. So we're using the HTTP protocol. So that's the web or the internet. And I guess you'll learn about HTTP and other protocols when you do networking modules. For this module, then, there are 24 hours of formal instruction. So 12 of these are going to be these lectures, which would traditionally be face-to-face. And perhaps in the latter part of the semester, we may move into a classroom and you'll see me in person. But otherwise, they're going to be here. So their lectures are going to be actually not Thursdays and Tuesdays, so both you're here. And we're going to have this blended learning approach to this. So the module is also taken by people with different levels of experience. So some are already going to be familiar, and I can see from chat, you can see that, yes, you need to learn HTML. Everybody will need, but some will need to learn some more than others initially. We're going to move quickly. I see a question in chat there that says that the lecture is saved. Yes, all of the lectures will be available in YouTube. I don't delete anything, so it will be a live lecture. So as I say, ask questions in chat if you've got any questions at all. No problem doing it. You will need to do some independent study. Every module in computer science requires you to do this, and this module is no different. So full details of the lecture schedule, the assessment schedule, everything else that you need to know is available on Moodle. I'll show you some Moodle in a second, but basically, you know, you have 2 lectures per week and 2 hours of labs per week, and your attendance is compulsory for labs. You're going to have a 2-hour summative examination. Actually, that's not correct. You will have a 1-hour summative evaluation. So I'll make a change here. There's a 2-hour time slot for which you can do this 1-hour exam, but it's a 1-hour exam. And your assessment is based on continual assessment, which is worth 50% of this module. And the examination is worth 50% as well. So you're going to use Moodle to access your assignments and to submit all your assignments. I mean, you know this from your other labs and lab subjects, I guess. Your requirements assignment requirements will be available from Mondays, and labs and demonstrators are available to help you when you encounter difficulties. They're not there to give you assignments or do the assignment for you. Let's quickly just go across the Moodle and have a look. And you should be, I'll do that later. Actually, I'll do that later. We'll stick with this for now. But you can check into Moodle and you can see all of the material will be there. I see another question in chat. Will the 6 10-minute lectures be video later today? They'll be here today. Okay, so at 5 o'clock on Tuesdays, the lecture will be released, and there are 5 of them, not 6. And yes, they're already available in Moodle, so you should be able to see them. I'll perhaps be able to show you those in a little few minutes. As I said, I'm going to record all the lectures. I'll try to make them available via Moodle, which connects to YouTube, but sometimes this doesn't work very well for us. If the technology fails, can't do it, but I probably have other recordings that I can give you. The recordings aren't meant to be a replacement for turning up in person, so that's kind of expected. But I'll always make the slides available as well for you. So the online lectures are organized in a series of 5 10-minute lessons. And each lesson will have a short question at the end. You know, sometimes these lectures might have a question at the end. Sometimes they don't. They may just be there as it stands. You could just watch them and work through. But basically, if there are questions, they're just checks for your understanding. They don't contribute in any way to CA. So don't worry about that. So the examination, this is an error on this page, so scratch this page. I'll talk about the exams a little bit later, but there will be 2 questions at the end of the year for the exam. The 2 multiple choice question, and then you will be able to basically answer some questions. It's worth 20% overall, and you have a coding exam. But I'll talk about the full exam at a certain time, and all the details are actually available in Moodle. But I usually provide a bank of sample questions via Moodle, and you can see from the top of the page here, it's after pulling across some of an earlier slide for 2020. 2022 is different, but I will give you a bank of questions that will be included. I don't provide answers, but you will be able to work on this a little bit later. I'll also give you feedback if you want to give me some sample answers. Just give them to me and I'll help you. It's not possible to repeat your CA over the summer, so your mark will be used for both summer and autumn. So if you've got difficulties with assignment and assessment, you really need to let me know during the semester. You can't come to me at the end of the semester and say, can I do my CA during the summer, because we have no facility for allowing that to happen as part of this particular module. So it's not really the case. So sorry about that, but it is the case. But so if you look on Moodle, you'll see there's a list of all the topics for the year. And so we have these 4 sections. So the first section will be structuring and presenting and interacting with browser-based content. So the first week, we're going to look at HTML. Next week, we look at CSS. And the following week, we look at JavaScript. But the way it's actually organized, you will see that the CSS section that we have here will also include some information on HTML. The JavaScript will include information and some more support on CSS and HTML. So as you move along, you'll encounter more HTML, more CSS. And as we move through the module, you'll see this. But the primary object will be to focus on these 3 topics. And if you go to the Moodle webpage, you'll see a document which tells you a little bit about all of the topics. So that should be fine, and it'll be straightforward. So you always know what you're going to be doing, and hopefully it'll give you a little bit of clarity in that regard. So somebody asked the question asking me, can you have the question bank in Moodle now? No, and no, we won't give you any questions. And I think you probably asked me a question yesterday as well about releasing assignments early. We don't do that. In the past, I have released material early, and certain students have actually farmed out the material to other people to do the assignments for them so that they would have them ready, because they had a long time to do this. So we release it within a time frame so that everybody has the same shot at doing assignments in the same time frame, and we don't release anything early. So it's not going to happen anymore. We made that mistake once, and it's not going to happen again. But we can, and again, of course, the exams have to be approved by the external examiner. So we can't release something to you now, and then the examiner might not approve, and then we'd have to say, well, no, sorry, that's not what it is. So we have to wait until later in the semester until we get approval from the examiner. When the examiner is happy with that, then we release the information. So that's how it works. Okay, so what's important, and some people need to realize as well, is that this is not a web or a graphic design module. It's not a UX module. It's about generating, structuring, and presenting information in a network environment. We can't really focus on that level of stuff, because there are other modules that do this anyway. So, I really focus on making sure that your HTML is okay, it's good, and that the style is okay and appropriate for the assignment. But, you don't have to be a fancy UX designer in order to get marks. We give very few marks for actual style in that regard. So as I said, the other thing, I won't be teaching HTML, CSS, or JavaScript in huge detail. You have to look at some personal learning to become expert in these, but there will be practice. And in principle, you don't actually need to know an awful lot of HTML in order to make these things work for assignments. If you start thinking about it and start working with it, you'll find that you probably only need use about 12 tags. Okay? So it's not a lot of tags. So I don't worry too much about that. But if you do need to, and you will need to look at HTML, I would certainly recommend that you go to the W3 Schools website and have a look there. And there's a great HTML tutorial. It's doable in a couple of hours. And they also have one on CSS and JavaScript. if you need to review, and you will need to review your SQL for later in the module, you've all done an SQL course, then you'll be able to have a look at that as well. So it's a really good resource, and I'd certainly work with that. One of the other brilliant tools is the Mozilla Developer Network. And so if you can click through to the Mozilla Developer Network, developer.mozilla.org, you'll actually see there's a huge bank of information on every tag, JavaScript, CSS, HTML, everything you would need, JSON, everything you need for this module, as a reference source. So instead of recommending a textbook for this module, I always recommend these two resources as well. So that's Mozilla Developer Network and the W3 Schools, and they're perfect. You don't need to buy a book for that. Okay, and I see some response in the chat. Wang, thanks a million. I appreciate your understanding on this, so it's great. There's a huge username there but I'll just reduce it to Plus Ultra that says, are there books or extra materials? And so those are the ones that I'm suggesting. So so hopefully that will answer that question for you as well as we work around. So this is a great resource, and really useful. And I have no problem with you copying and using HTML or any example that I give you in class. You can reuse that and modify it yourself in any of my lessons. And if there's anything else any material that I give you, or it's on W3 Schools or something, just acknowledge where you get them, get the source, and change it. Just don't copy and paste stuff without acknowledgement. It's not a good idea. It's never a good idea. Okay, as a developer, it's never good anyway. So we won't work with that. So in terms of the learning objectives here, really what I'm interested in looking at from you is I'm interested in that you should learn what a HTML document is today, how HTML documents are structured, how they're represented within a browser as a document object, and later in the lessons you'll be introduced to a document object model, and you can understand how to view and manipulate that. And you're welcome, Plus. Thank you. So you should become familiar with HTML tags, how to use the structured data, and you should become familiar with resources and tools that assist with HTML development. Okay, so that's the bit of the overview, and we won't do too much more about that. So one of the things I will probably do during the lectures is I'll try to get some quizzes and chats. So maybe I'd like to test that this thing works. So you might bear with me for a minute or two and see if this works, and maybe you might try to work with this, please. So let's see. So if you could maybe go to menti.com and use the code 17579037 just to let me sure, so you can answer this really important burning question about which kitten is the cutest, and then you can verify for me that this whole system works as well. So that would be good, and do this at your leisure. Okay, while I look at the questions. Okay, so okay, Al Croker 87, wondering is there a site or program? Yeah, I would recommend that you use VS Code or Atom or brackets, any of them, that will be fine. You can see on the screen that the code, Michael, is 17579037. That's the code, okay? You can look at the screen currently now, and you should be able to see it's up there waiting for you at the top part of the screen, okay? So I see it's working because I see people are there, and lots of people are snoozy and want to sleep. But yes, I use both actually for my development. I tend to use VS Code for my coding, and I tend to use Atom for my markdown and some of the other work as well. I'll show you a little bit of that on the computer that I use for not the streaming computer, but one that the display is on here. It's not a particularly good computer for coding, but I'll show you my setup, and hopefully that will help. Okay. Okay, so right, so I'll take this away for now. Okay, so I see the Menti stuff works, okay? Some people are getting it, some people don't. So let's get back to this. Right, so let's move on to this section here, which is, I want to talk to you first about data and information and structuring content. So that's super important, that you understand the difference between these, because it's key to understanding web development, really, and presentation. So when we think about data, they are raw, unorganized facts that need to be processed. Data can be something as simple and seemingly random and useless until they're actually organized. So when the data are processed, organized, or structured, or presented in the context, then it makes them useful, and then they're referred to as information. Ozzy, yeah, you can use anything you like. I have no problem with Sublime as well. It's nice too. I'm a Mac user, so I tend to use things that are nice for Macs as well. And sorry, well, I'm not just a Mac user. In fairness, I use Macs, I use Windows, and I use Linux, so I have to have something that will work for me across all these, and VS Code works everywhere, so it's useful. Okay, so let's get back to the slide. Okay, so humans then tend to like to make sense of everything that they see. They always turn data into information, and they engage in some kind of sense making. So if you think for a minute, what do these data mean to you when you see them? If you look at 2, for example, 6, 666, 087, 3.1415, these are numbers. Okay? They are basically numbers. But do they have meaning for you? So some of them have meaning for me, you know, and you could look straight away at this one, 087. You might think, well, actually, that's a prefix dialing code, for example. Okay. This one, 3.1415, could be pi. Okay, it may not be pi, but the issue is that we do tend to look at these things and try to make some sense of them in many respects. So I look at 2 and I just think that's an even prime. Okay, to me, it matters to me. So there's a whole bunch of these things that are useful, and it isn't just related to numbers. It also relates to data. Then, sorry, not numbers. Data can be styled in order to give you a meaning. So if you have a color, what does this mean? What does that mean to you? Okay, so, and it means a lot. Okay, so red could be danger, red could be love. I mean, red could be anger. I mean, red might just be red. Okay, it doesn't matter. Red might be no, for example, when you see it attached to an icon on a screen. So, for example, we often see buttons that are red and green, and then the green means yes, and the red means no. But if, for example, if you look at some of the cash machines that offer you receipts after you conduct a transaction, then they actually have yes as red button and green as a no button, because people are so used to clicking the green button, they'll say no when actually they do want the receipt. Okay, so it's tricky. So this whole notion of controlling people with color and things is real part of UX. I don't teach that UX module anymore, but that's really interesting and it's useful. So, you know, meaning is very, very important. I see some questions, but I'll get to those in a couple of minutes, okay? So what I want you to actually do, remember though, is a little bit later, is that I want you to look at structured data. And we can see structured data that's organized into a table. So in a table is information that's a set of facts arranged in rows and columns, and it's a nice way to display information. It requires a medium, such as writing or print on paper or some visual display in order to make it work. It's a mode for visual communication and a way to set out and lay out data. So the structure helps with the meaning and interpretation, and that's how we need to understand the structure itself and how to structure it using HTML. So look at this, it has a style as well. Okay? And you know, you'll see a little bit about table commands in HTML, and a lot of work with tables and the table command as part of your assignments. But remember, table is about organizing data. But if we look at this screen here, we'll see that the table has presentation features that differ from the previous one. Even though the data is the same, the styles and the presentation are different. Okay? So here we can see that the properties, the attributes, all of that style is very different, but it's the exact same table structurally and informationally. So depending on the presentation requirements, so whether you want something in print or online or device sizes, the style might need to be different. Okay? And you know, what's really interesting here then is that the structure has to remain constant. So we have to think about separating the style, which is the presentation, from the structure. And the table is not interactive. This is not interactive. Why is this table not interactive? I click here, it just moves the page actually, but it's not interactive. You know, we can't manipulate it because this does not provide any functionality for interaction. So later on in your assignments, you'll find that you will be asked to make tables, style those tables, and interact with those tables. So making the tables means that you use HTML to structure the table. Styling the table means that you use cascading style sheets, which is CSS. And interacting with the table means that you have to implement and add some JavaScript to it. So it brings all three of those web development, front-end web development elements together in order to be able to present and engage with data and information. And that's web information processing. So before we move on to the next section, if you have any questions, you can ask them in chat, and I'll just look at the ones that are there already. Okay, so with Joshua, can I show you how to set up the project file? That would be appreciated. There are lots of tutorials on how to do this. We may be able to ask in the lab for you to do it, but I can show you mine at some point. But I probably have some short lessons that show you how that stuff happens. So you may see it and see how to do this in some of the 10-minute lessons. So come across them. If you don't come across it or can't find it, just drop me a mail. Okay. Somebody is asking about the lab slot that you've chosen. I don't know. We may wait until it's done, Jack, and then we'll be able to reallocate afterwards. But you could send a Teams message to the head demonstrator, and she may be able to help you with that as well. Okay. Owen, if you're working with framework React, can we? No. I'm not for this particular assignment. There's some later assignments where I'd be quite happy for you to be able to use React, but I will ask you to use something specific. If I have specific requirements, I'll ask you to use those. I need you to meet the requirements, because this isn't about getting a solution. It's about meeting the requirements for this. And if I ask you to do something, then I want you to be able to do something that I ask you to do. Working with JSON, I don't mind. I use lots of different tools for working with JSON myself. But again, I may ask you to do manual manipulation from this. Okay. What do we do in the module? Something related to IO things? No, this is not an IoT module. This is just an introduction to web development, actually. And Carol, the lab start next week. I think if you read the Moodle page, it'll tell you all this information about this. Okay. So let me see if I can switch a lecture, switch to Moodle or something here for a second, so we can help people a little bit, help people along a little bit. Second, switch here. Log into Moodle for you. Second. If we can see CS230. Very slow today. Network. Let me just see if we can show you this one. Okay, so this is Moodle, and so this is the Moodle page for CS230. If you scroll down, here, you'll see, as I scroll, you'll see the information on the module calendar is here. The lecture schedule is here. The assessment overview is here. All of the assignment schedule is here. You can click to the channel. All of the assignments will be here. They're all available and they're scheduled to appear at a particular time. Week 1 is here, and you'll see the links to the lectures will be here. There are some resources that you can use here. The files will be released at 5 o'clock this evening for the second lecture. That's the time of lectures. All the demo code that I use will be released at 5 o'clock, and the slides from this lecture together with this a link to this particular lecture is here. So everything should be available in Moodle for you. So hopefully you'll be able to find it there. And if you've got further questions, have a look. It's not that as I say, it's not that I don't mind answering the questions, Carl, but if I'm not around and you need to ask the questions, always best to go to the Moodle page. Okay. So that's great. Right, so let's look on to the next question, where we're going to look at a HTML markup language. So it's quite straightforward. I mean, you can go to W3 Schools as well and have a quick look at a HTML tutorial. You can click on an introduction there, and you can see some basic HTML. And here's a nice demo, which is, you can look at this document, you can try it out, and you can see here's a simple HTML document on the left from HTML School, W3 Schools, and here's the title. And you can change the title to be new heading, run, and it'll make the change. So we can see the various tags. It's built from tags, and I'll tell you a little bit about that in a little while. If I take Atom and launch Atom here, as I say, this is just a machine that I use for presentation. I rarely use VS Code on this one, but I use Atom And we can just copy this from here, go back to Atom, put it in Atom, and then I should be able to have a package that will preview my HTML here. Able to previewing for me. Save this. I'll save it to meeting lectures demo. And I'll it knows it's HTML, so you'll see the kind of preview come. And I can see my preview as well. So I just copy the code and it worked. I've got source text highlighting here, which is nice. And then again, I have my preview here. An alternative, if you don't have, if you're working online and you don't have the ability to have set up something installed on your computer, you could actually go to something like JS Fiddle, which allows you to be able to, for example, have this thing called Fiddle, and we can create a little piece of HTML, and I can run this by clicking Run, and I can see the run here, and it allows you to have HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. An alternative to this, of course, is maybe to use CodePen, which is I don't want to be logging into this. Oh, sorry, that's REPL. Let's start coding with CodePen, which is similar. I can paste my code in here, and I can see the output is here. So there's lots of ways of either working online, creating your own, logging in to something online, or you can download and install your own software. As people said, I use Atom, I use VS Code, there's Sublime, there's Brackets, there's loads and loads of things, whatever you want to do. And this is a great jumping off space. HTML practice with W3 Schools, I'd recommend. You can copy and paste it. Okay, so let's go back to So HTML then, it's that standard markup language for web pages. Okay? And it's a computer language that uses something called tags in order to define elements within a document. It's human readable. That means that the markup files contain standard words rather than typical programming syntax. And several markup languages exist. Okay, so the most popular are HTML and SVG, and you're going to see a little bit about SVG a little bit later in one of your assignments, and XML, okay, which we won't do too much with here. And XML is a meta markup language. It provides a foundation for creating other languages. But we'll also see JSON, which is like XML, and it's used to structure data in a text format, and it's commonly used to exchange data over the internet. So a markup language is a language which is used to represent structured data. And markup languages are not considered programming languages. The difference with a programming language is not always obvious, however. For example, XSLT is a Turing-complete language that can simulate a Turing machine, but it's based on XML, which is a markup language. So, there's some confusion a little bit there maybe at times. But I'm letting you know that the opinion is often contested, so don't worry too much about the theory for now. I want you to consider HTML, and we're looking at HTML5, to be a markup language to represent structured data in a textual format, and we see how to do it. So here's the example that we saw and copied from W3 Schools. Okay, it's a very simple text file created with a standard editor. You saw me do this. Contains a textual content, which is data, structured using tags. For example, the H1 tag is a large heading tag. Every tag is a purpose, and there are opening and closing tags. So you'll see, for example, here we have a title, and we have slash title. Head is and slash head. A body, slash body. And these are the various elements or parts of the document. So we call these opening and closing tags, and the elements inside of this is said to be tagged if it's inside two tags. So the doc type here tells us that the declaration defines a HTML5 document. The HTML element tells me it's the root element of the page. The head element contains meta information about the document. The title is more information, meta information is the title. The body contains the visible page content. H1 defines a large heading, and P defines a paragraph. And this is the way you can structure this data. Let me have a look at the questions first, okay? I don't know which PDF you're referring to on the Moodle page, Wang, at all. I mean, it should be there. It should be good, okay? And yes, you will be doing some work with SVG in your second assignment, okay? And it's a nice assignment. We're going to be having some fun with SVGs, okay? So that should be really nice. It's a nice one. Okay, so my advice, as I said already, is to visit W3 Schools, work through the tutorial, lots of resource. It's my go-to site when I need to look up a tag as well if I'm not looking at Mozilla Developer Network. So you can copy and paste like I did into your own code and run them. And look, the thing to do is that when if you look at the way to learn programming and the way to learn languages generally is to start with something like this that you know works. Maybe copy and paste it into your editor here, like I've done with Atom, okay? And then make changes. And see, do you expect what will happen? So if I say here, if I say, well, what happens if I change this, my new paragraph, you'll see what it changes. I might say, well, now what I want to do is, well, how do I make a second paragraph? Well, I could just do P and then say my second paragraph, and I'm going to close that tag, and you'll see my second paragraph, and it works. And you'll notice the paragraph gives you a breaking space. So if I actually move this here, I still get this here. They're not one after the other, you know, so because the paragraph introduces a breaking space. So you'll learn this a little bit as you work with the tags. But the thing to do is that you copy something that works, then start making changes to it, and then you learn a little bit more. And it's always a good idea to try and anticipate what the change will be before you do it. Then you have a sense of whether I'm learning or not. So that's a good idea. So as I said, W3 Schools has this Triad Editor, which you can practice and play with, or you can use JS Fiddle, or you can use CodePen. Well, they work very nice, okay? But you need to play, guys, okay? Open an example, plan a change, consider what you expect to happen with the change. Did it happen? If it didn't happen, why did it not happen? How does it impact on your understanding? Play is really important. If you're not making mistakes, you're not learning, probably so. That's okay to make mistakes. Absolutely okay to make mistakes. And try to work. As I said, you can look at all that sort of stuff. But the other thing as well is that you can do is you can also install your own web server. And we'll do that shortly as well. And you'll see some short demos I've shown how to do this. Server, and you can access all of your own stuff. They're good tools like JetBrains, Toolbox. There's loads of software that you can use to help set up your own web service. And I use the XAMPP, which is really good, and I recommend you having a look at that. But I'll show you how to do that in one of the lessons, okay? So we talked about tables a little bit earlier, okay? And I'd like to maybe come back to the tables a little bit, and we can see how we might work and play with tables, okay? Let me see if there's any questions, okay? Why is there an exclamation mark on the first line? Okay, let me go back here. Back, I see the question. Back. That's just like because it's a special meta command, okay, for the doc type. Who asked that question there? Eugene. Okay, so yeah, you will probably usually only see this at the very top, okay, and it just uses it only for doc type, okay, and it's just to specify the kind of document, whether it's HTML or XML sometimes. So it's the only time you'll see this, I guess. So thanks for asking, okay. It's not for commenting. If you want to comment something, let's comment. We can do this. You can use this command and it will comment. So we can use this command for commenting here. And somebody did say, yeah. So the only time you see this and this, it's the exclamation mark or pling. I call them pling. Pling doc type is just at the top of a document, but you will see it used, I guess, for commenting as well. So this is how we comment. Remove the comment here. Here. And we're here. Okay, so good questions. And so it's okay. And you know, you can have all sorts of spaces in here. It'll still behave the same way and all. It's fine because these don't impact on the actual presentation. And we see a little bit more about presentation later. Okay, so let's have a look at this table. Okay, so here's a very simple table that was created using the table tag. So it consists of rows, which are specified using this TR tag. And it consists of data elements, which are specified by the TD tag. And we can specify header elements on a column by the TH tag. So the TH, TR, and TD are kind of subtags or sub-elements, and it's often the case that you will find the elements, will only really be useful or work with inside another set of elements. So they're nested. They tend to be nested. So we tend to only use these when we're using the table tag. So well-formed documents, they're called, adhere to structuring rules. And so you'll see other ones like forms and so forth that have sub-elements, and can be a little bit more complex, but they're very useful to have. The TD elements themselves are the data containers of the table, and it can contain all sorts of elements: text, images, lists, other tables, all that kind of stuff. So here's our table, and you can see this on W3 Schools. So, I mean, I could go and have a look at that. In fact, I think I have them saved already. Open this. So I'll open it. Let me save this. I'll open file. I have some demos, and all of these demos will be available for you somewhere. Here's a table. So here's a basic table, okay, in HTML. Similar to last time. You'll notice that I didn't put in the doc type here. I don't always need it, so I didn't use it this one here. I have my head and the header section, and it's got a nice little title here. I have a body section, and you'll notice this nesting was done manually, but you can auto nest and auto indent, sorry. So I have a table with a header, table with data, and we can preview this here again with my previewer. And we see this table. It's a boring looking table. There's no CSS and styling, but it works and it's a table and it structures as we would expect it to. We can take the information from this body here and copy this, and we can go back to this fiddle, pop it in here if we want, and we can run this again, and we get the table here. So yeah, so I mean, we can manipulate the table, we can change the contents, we can add in another row if we wanted. We could add another row. Let's copy this row here. Okay, so I have a fourth row here, and we'll see it's here. I'll just change this. And we can see that the changes happen in real time. So manipulating and working with tables is fairly straightforward. I'd recommend it's one of the top top tags that you start looking at initially, because you'll see a little bit more as we go on. Okay, I like to talk about it initially. The reason I talk about tables as well is because you see a lot of time you see people implementing tables using div elements, which is another tag. Okay, and I like to use tables for tables. But a lot of people use divs, and we can use it, and you'll probably see a little bit in the assignments about the difference between using both of them a little bit later. So really you can improve your HTML by engaging with regular practice or play using virtual playgrounds like those ones I just showed you, personal editors, browsers, toolbox, and going to W3 Schools. So if you even spend 10 minutes a day working a new tag, you'll become expert very quickly. Very, very quickly. 10 minutes a day, in 2 or 3 weeks, you'll have lots and lots of tags. That's only 10 minutes. So you'll be fine. So you can always look for an example, and then a lot of time you'll see lists that look like this, that give you the details on the various tags. So a table defines a table, header, caption, grouping columns, footers, bodies, headers, all of that stuff. You can look at this and find that it will be useful. And I would recommend you can click through to the HTML tag reference, look at a tag that you think is interesting and work. Do a tag a day and it'll be good fun. You should make notes, keep a diary with all sorts of examples, and have that for reference a little bit later. Okay. Somebody asks, are we going to be working with databases? Yes, that's in the module. If you actually look at the module overview, you'll see that that's essential a little bit later. You'll be working with 2 types of database in this module. You'll be working with relational databases, and you'll be working with collection-based databases. So the relational is the SQL stuff that you would have done already in the last semester, and the collection-based one is going to be MongoDB, which uses BSON as its storage format, which is essentially JSON, and that's a way to encode data. And we're looking at that, I think. So yeah, you'll need to know about databases for. I want to tell you just finally in the last piece of this, I want to talk to you about the document object model. And that document object model is a W3C World Wide Web Consortium standard, and it defines a standard for accessing documents. And this W3C document object model, or the DOM, is a platform and language neutral interface that allows programs and scripts to dynamically access and update the content, structure, and style of your document. It's a standard that's separated into three parts. There's the core DOM, and that's a standard model. There's the XML DOM, okay, that's the standard for XML, and HTML DOM, that's a standard model for HTML, and we're mostly interested in that part. Okay, and it's a way that allows you to manipulate and control HTML. Okay, so it defines all of the HTML elements as objects, and because they're objects, as you know from your Java programming, for example, then they have properties and methods, and they also have events. So it's a standard way to get, change, add, and delete HTML elements in it. So as we move through this, you'll see that when we learn some JavaScript, you'll see that you can manipulate a web page by introducing elements that weren't there originally, and then, or you can change the behavior of a web, okay, depending on some activity. You'll see something in a web page where you have a mouse over it, and it'll change color or something. So what's happening on here is that you've generated an event, you've captured an event, and you're able to do something with that event. So we'll see how to do all that kind of stuff a little bit later. So we can see about pop-ups and manipulations, changing colors, hiding, filling, validation, all that kind of can go on. And all of that is possible because of this HTML DOM. So you will need to know a little bit more about that, and I will talk about it in the lessons that are available this evening at 5 o'clock. But basically, we have this hierarchy of documents. So the HTML DOM methods are actions that you can perform on all HTML elements. The DOM properties are values that you can set or change. So you can have a word that you can change based on a click. See if we can find one. We might do something interesting. So here's Mozilla. Let's do a quick search on, okay. Let's have a quick look for HTML on click example. Okay, here's an event from W3 Schools, okay. So if I click this button here, so button is another element here, okay. And it's a bit of a complicated page, but basically what happens is that click a button that will output the word hello world. So we can see what happened here. So I reload the page, so we run it again. Nothing's happening. Okay, if I click the button, hello world. And this happens because it's got to do with HTML DOM events here. And it's a non-click event. And so what the click does is it tells you when you click on something, we tell it to output hello world. In other words, we update the demo paragraph, which is hidden initially. It's still there, but it has no content initially. You can see here's a paragraph. We've given it an ID, and so we know how to find it. And it contains nothing. But then we call this JavaScript function, and it updates it by changing the content. Hello world. So these are the kind of things that happen. And this is important that you understand this early on as to the structure of HTML. So what you have this HTML document, when it's loaded by the browser creates this HTML DOM model, and that's used to draw the page and allow you to be able to engage with the page and allows you to be able to style the page. So this is what the properties and so on. So the properties change what it looks like, and the JavaScript is used in order to be able to manipulate. So in the DOM, all the elements are defined as objects. The programming interface is the properties and methods of each object. And we're going to see more about that as we work through the lecture. Okay, no questions coming there, that's okay. Yeah, and so we start off with the document, then we have the root element, and then all the other elements have a structure as a tree. And this is how it works, okay? And the web works like this. And you can manipulate these as well by opening the JavaScript console, for example, on your browser and doing some manipulation. And again, we'll see that a little bit later too. So what the DOM is not then, it's not a binary description. It doesn't define any binary source code or its interfaces. It's not used to describe objects in XML or HTML. The DOM describes XML as objects. or HTML as object. It's not represented by a set of data structures. It's an interface that specifies object representation, and it does not show criticality of objects. It doesn't have any information about which object in the document is appropriate to the context and which is not. If you want to have a look at that, there's a really good article on geeksforgeeks.com about this. I'd recommend it. You can click through from the slides that I give. So basically, it's an interesting structure, but what's really important is that the DOM, there's a standard DOM across all browsers. So depending on your favorite browser, it should work, but it doesn't always work. When you manipulate something with JavaScript, it may work differently in Chrome than it does in Opera, or it may work differently in Safari, or in Edge. But there is some standardization now, so most apps will work in whatever browser they're using. So thank you for coming along. I will have another couple of questions. I was just going to show you maybe a couple of other, see if I can get another couple of demo things. But before we leave, I wanted to show you something about the later. So for the demos, which I mentioned, the little short 10-minute ones, they tend to have accompanying markdown files. So you'll see that I have for lesson 2, for example. Let me open this with Adam. Okay. So most of the time then, let me just close all this other stuff. Save. This one. So, I give you a bunch of examples that I'm talking about here. So I tend to have this document that I produce. I should be able to produce that. Let me see if I can preview this file for you. So most of the accompanying lectures have this lesson. So here was one of the lessons, which is lesson 2, which goes into a little bit more detail on structuring, advanced structuring of HTML tables. And you'll see that they're written in Markdown. Okay, here, so you can see this is little lecture notes, and I tend to work through this, and then all of the demos will be available as well. So all of the demo files that I use are available there too. So you'll be able to just download everything as a zip file for each week. So week 1. So anything you see me using will probably be zipped up and available on the website, and you should have no problem accessing it, and you'll be able to replicate it. So yeah, I think that should be very helpful for you. The lecture notes will be there as well. And with Atom, I use this Markdown Preview Enhanced package here, okay, in order to be able to read the preview files. And these are fairly simple, straightforward stuff. But some of them are quite complex and quite long, and there's lots of examples. And I have examples for everything. And a lot of the time when you want to do assignments, come back and look at these short lessons, and you may find examples. Okay? So everything should be there, and but you can also use a Markdown Preview Enhanced Viewer for VS Code as well. So there's packages there too, but I just tend to use Atom on this machine for it. Any questions there? Yeah, amazing table. Yeah. You will be surprised, tables are simple until you start doing assignment 3 or 4, and then you've got to dynamically add rows to a table, and people forget the basics at that point. That it's all about DOM manipulation. I'm telling you now, get to know the simple stuff, and don't underestimate the importance of doing the manipulation on the simple stuff, because the hard stuff will come fairly quickly. Anyway, okay. Any questions before I close the stream? Look, it's great to have you here. We have about 240 in the class. There's about 90 at the class, but most people, you can get this. If you can't make it, you'll be able to get the recording that's there afterwards. You'll be able to get the other ones are offline. Anyway, I'll see you in the labs. I look forward to meeting you all in the labs and see how it's all going. It's not a great situation to be in. You don't really, get the same experience. So, this is me in my live stream studio, which is my office. I have my lights, I play games, I drink a lot of coffee. We have where we live. This is my live stream setup, and so forth. So, if you want to come and talk to me, come and talk to me. If you see me, and you want to say hello, stop and say hello. That's absolutely no problem with this. This online thing is a little bit for, it's a little bit, not great, but it works for us. You know, yeah, we have a good bit of streaming kit here. It's not so bad, and so yeah, so this is me, and I like to see students. So please come along at some point. Okay, look, it's great to have you here. If you find yourself having difficulties, let me know early on. Everybody gets a tough time at some point, so we need to be able to help you and sort you out. Okay, talk to you again. Thanks a million, folks. I really enjoyed having your company in the chat as well. Take care.